probably the most important part of today, and as you kind of think about your future, is in the age of exponential transformation, how can you, as an individual, a professional, and your organization stay relevant? So I thought maybe this would be a relevant topic to really talk about that. So I will be talking about some tips on how you can bring those perspectives together in your organizations to help them in their transformation journey, as well as hopefully take something for you as an individual as well, that how can you stay relevant in this, right? So hopefully this will be a interesting topics. And to give you a little bit of a preview, one information that you will learn about yourself during the course of this 1 hour, which will be really delightful for you. So look out for that. I will be asking some questions through that, so I would encourage engagement. Okay? I don't want to have it as a monologue. Cool. There is no doubt about this. The world is changing. And we have tons of kind of technologies, IoT, cloud, AI enables, networks, whether it's professional network, whether it's social networks, whether it's blockchain networks and others. Now, most recently, generative AI, like ChatGPT. I'm sure you must have used once or twice for submitting your essays, you're doing your assignments too, right? I don't blame you for that. But essentially, the point is machines are becoming more and more successful in replacing the tasks that humans were used to perform. What was one interesting anecdote was for me and for many other folks there was an expectation that AI will first disrupt a lot of repetitive tasks, laborious tasks. But what we saw over the last few months is AI was able to replace a lot of creative tasks as well, writing prose, poem, essays, generating art. That was pretty surprising, right? So that is happening. And the change is happening at an exponential pace and at kind of a speed which is unprecedented in human history. So in 65, there is Moore's law that came by Gordon Moore, that every 18 months, the number of transistors on a chip will double for the same cost, right? But now this performance doubling is happening in a much shorter time horizon, 2 to 3 months. This is happening, and this could be scary too, right? And as Yuval Harari mentioned in his book as well, very profoundly, I think this is the first time that humans are really concerned about their irrelevance, right? Does anybody disagree with this? Right? But this also provides a lot of opportunities. So what I'll be talking about is, again, how to stay relevant as an individual and as an organization. So first, let's talk about as an enterprise, because I've spent a lot of time in digital transformations of many enterprises. So some learnings I want to share over here first, and then we'll come to the individual part. First question: what phenomenon distinguishes free market capitalistic economy from other forms of economies like communism and socialism and others?
If there's a need that exists, and if someone is able to capitalize on that need, it's a capitalistic market, as opposed to socialism, where if someone is thriving, you'd want to actually reallocate those assets and resources equitably to other people as well. So you can do whatever you want and excel in your own pursuit in a capitalistic setting.
Okay, good definition.
I think there is no government intervention to take market capital. Because of that, the capital flows wherever there is a chance for someone to make profits.
So just to clarify, in human nature, free market economy doesn't exist. So governments actually build that construct which enables that. But anyways, I get your point.
Basically, I want to say where the market drives I'm not
good. All that's good. In the interest of moving forward, it's the creative destruction element. Have you heard that somewhere? Have you read about it? No? What does it mean? Creative destruction is the phenomenon in which a third party, a newcomer comes in and disrupts the existing incumbent. There are some examples over here. 100 plus years automotive industry. Who disrupted it? A startup from Palo Alto, right? 100 plus years retail business. Who disrupted it? Amazon. And there are like many examples such as that, right? What happens is that in a free market economy, it encourages massive amount of risk taking, but then there is massive amount of reward if you're successful. In socialism, communism, and other forms of governments, it's really not there, right? So this is kind of happening. So you must have kind of seen the S curve somewhere, right? Any product, any company. At the beginning, you don't know the product market fit. You do a lot of experimentation. You find the product market fit, and then you scale. Capital flows in, and then you scale. And then at some point, you kind of reach that plateau. What happens after that? Can you stay there? You either go up, you reinvent yourself, or you become the dust of history. There are so many examples where companies have transformed themselves, but there are so many examples in which companies, and not just companies, the entire industries have just not disrupted themselves, and they are no more there. So what happens is, if you are already at near the plateau, you are challenged by the market forces, whether it's competition, whether it's new technology, whether it's changing behavioral expectations, and many other things. It may be already too late at that point, or you'll be like taking some drastic steps, may succeed, may not succeed. But just before that, when you're still on your growth curve, there is an opportunity for you to transform yourself. And actually, by the way, that's where Equinix is. We already had 80 plus quarters of continuous growth. But then the leadership decided that, hey, we need to transform ourselves into digital services. And that's where kind of I'm playing some role over there too. Any company comes to your mind where they are at the plateau and they might go up or down? Any?
I think Google is a pretty good example because
you're right. Google is there, right? And then OpenAI is right here, just at the beginning of it, right? And Microsoft has taken advantage of it. Is the biggest beneficiary of that. So that's, I think, just keep that in mind, that framework in mind over there. So if you are working with hopefully a lot of organizations, but the incumbents are looking for opportunity to transform, and there are three ways as I saw it. One is they can look at new business models. How can we transform our business to enable new business models? Maybe we can become a digital platform. Maybe we can enable peer-to-peer sharing and many other things, or new value propositions to customers, go to subscription model rather than kind of just a license-based model. Or they can look at technologies. How can specific technologies can really help us in transforming AI and other kind of technologies out there? Or they can look at customer experience. So what are the changing behavioral expectations from customer experience, and then try to transform themselves. So my question to you is, where should be the focus of digital transformation for your company? Should it be focused on business models, technologies, or customer experience? What do you think? Go ahead. All of these, all right? Cool. Customer experience? Customer experience? Customer experience? Technology. Okay. All right, cool. So let me just give you a little bit perspective so to come to the answer of that, right? Let's assume that there's a company which has successful business, primarily physical business, right? Sales led, you have the account teams, they go and sell, maybe a little bit of self-service option and stuff like that. And they are looking to transform themselves. So the leadership has figured out that, hey, we need to transform, maybe hopefully not because of market forces, but they've kind of internally figured out that, hey, we need to go towards a digital model. So in the future, in the next 3 to 5 years, we need to have more than a third of our revenue coming from self-service, some sales assisted, and some we're going to continue our account team, but be more optimized on that. So when they are kind of looking at this, okay, we need to go from physical focus to a digital focus. They can look at, okay, how are we going to be going there? So technologies, SaaS platforms, AI, and many other things. But the other point is, first look at who. First thing is, as many of you mentioned, is their customers. Now, these will be both existing customer segments as well as the new customer segments that you are planning to go after. But the important point is that what you all a lot of times neglect is other stakeholders which are involved, which are internal stakeholders from sales team, care team, operations, IT, product teams, and others. And if you think about all of these are your key constituents, customers and stakeholders. Even if you understand your customers' changing behavioral needs and you're unable to rally your organization towards a transformation which enables that experience, it's not going to succeed. If you're just focusing internally and don't focus on customer, you're not going to succeed either, right? So you need to kind of look at both of them. So let's first look at, and all of these, both of them are what? These are human beings. These are individuals. Sometimes we have a tendency when we have these business discussions, we forget that we're talking about humans, individuals. You kind of consider, okay, this is the persona, this is their characteristics, this is their needs, and this is how we're going to sell to them, and stuff like that. But they are humans. So let's kind of talk about that. So first, let's look at the customers. So how do we understand customer needs? And I'm sure you must have taken some courses and some, so I'll skip through that. Let me know if that is the case. But before I do that, quick question. What is the best way to go from Lahore to Karachi? Quickly. Highway? By air? Train? Bus? Anybody else? Cycle? All right. By foot, yeah. If you are in PTI, then that's really good. It depends. So it's by air. If you have an afternoon meeting and you are crunched with time, take a morning flight, get your meeting, and then take an evening flight back. If you are students, scrap for cash, but want to have fun, maybe train is better. If you want to have some adventure, maybe renting a Jeep or something like that. If you have found an awesome opportunity that forces you to move your entire family, then none of them will work. You'll need to hire a movie company. You'll need to look for a place over there in Karachi. You need to then kind of figure out the schooling for your kids. So the question was the same. The answer was different based on who was in the focus and what was the context. Remember this. How do we do this? And this is probably you must have taken some classes. This is where design thinking comes into play. Really understanding who you're solving, what problem, and what is the context of that user, right? So how many of you have taken classes or some workshops around design thinking at LUMS? Okay, well, a few, okay. How many of you have theoretical understanding of what design thinking is? Okay. So let me just quickly give you a little bit of primer. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I assume you have read about it and you have kind of seen it. Tim Brown, not going to spend more time, but main focus is focusing on humans. What are their problems? What are you trying to solve? And then bring technology and then look at the business value. Not just focusing on customer needs only, but looking at technological possibilities and then where you can derive business value as well. Bringing it all together, that's what design thinking enables. Again, Don Norman about design thinking. The other point is to solve complex problems and the right problems, identifying the right problems. Design thinking also comes into play. I'll give you one example, anecdotal example from my past experience. I was working with the state government here in US, and they wanted to engage with us to help solve their what they call procurement execution problem. It's very messy. So what I did was I led that engagement. So we had a lot of experts and their subject matter experts in that room as well. We looked at the journey of entire procurement from start to finish. And what we found out that procurement execution took 1 week out of a 9-month cycle. I said, okay, what do you do in this 8.5 months? I said, okay, we gather the requirements. I said, wouldn't it make sense to tackle that the requirements gathering for procurement rather than procurement execution. Because if you're able to shave off 10% of this part, you're talking about shaving off 3 weeks. And here, even if you're able to like shave off 50%, you're talking about 3 days. So they said, yeah, that makes sense. So we changed the focus on really how they gather the procurement requirements. So that's the thing. Finding the right problem is so important. And that's where design thinking also come to play. Famous Venn diagram: desirability, feasibility, viability. You guys are well versed of that, so I'm not going to spend time on it. Really exploring the problem space first, keeping an eye on who the users are. Another anecdote: I was doing this strategic workshop with a couple of startups. So one of the startup found there were two founders of the startup, and I kind of just asked, okay, who's your customers and what is the problem you're trying to solve? The two founders could not even agree on that. They had like a different point of view. So if you can't agree on who your target users are and what the problem you're trying to solve, how are you going to solve them, right? So that's very important to really focus on the problem. And then once you do that, then you kind of iterate your way towards a solution by kind of showing some ideas to them and do quick prototyping and stuff like that. This is a way to look at design thinking. So design part is bringing form and function together. So how the product looks, how it feels, how it functions, all of that kind of things is kind of the design aspect, right? But the other part is the thinking part, which brings together creative thinking and business thinking together. Business thinking is much more rational, logical. That's what you learn in business school, right? But then creative thinking is much more explorative. And you're trying to find out what is a novel aspect of solving this problem is, right? And if you bring all of this together, it's magical, right? And more important thing is the focus on doing. So it's a kind of a misnomer. It's more should be called design doing rather than design thinking, because the focus is on action rather than just theoretical. Quick kind of you use these techniques, observation, you spend the time with the users, ride alongs with them to see what they're trying to do, go into their place of work. I mean, this was a project in which we are working with a consumer products company delivering cereals and kind of nutrition products. So our research team actually spent time with people on their home, how they actually cook food and stuff like that. A lot of those insights, when we get from the field, we kind of bring it in a room, put it out there, synthesize them. We bring all those insights into ideation workshop where different stakeholders are there and kind of have a multidisciplinary collaboration, different folks coming in from different functions inside the organization. And then you kind of orchestrate that in a structured manner. Do rapid prototyping. This is the prototyping that you're seeing happening over here. It actually evolved into a solution that won 2 design awards, and it also became a product at SAP afterwards as well. So that's how it kind of starts quickly. You do iterative design. So when you do design, the only thing you see is the end result. But there's a whole process in which you are doing some storyboarding. You're bringing the users in, explaining to them how the experience would look like. You get their feedback, and then you iterate over your way towards it. You incorporate storytelling to really tell how the solution is going to work for the customers. And then at the end, you are able to see the amazing experience that you have. But there's tons of work that happens, right? So a quick recap of what design thinking is. Quick, any kind of questions about design thinking? Have you applied any in your work, design thinking in any way or form? No? Okay. Have you? Improving experience of the students. All right, cool. Yeah, I don't think so. I've obviously discuss karunga. There's a lot of folks who are reaching out to me to set up kind of a boot camp in Pakistan. Maybe something like 3-day where I kind of have an immersive workshop. I don't know. I'm thinking, how can I pull that off from here at LUMS or yeah, something like that. Yeah. I have those examples towards the end, the digital transformation examples, right? So I have those. And so what I Alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to apply not just this design thinking methodology in creating some innovative products, but actually applying that in a digital transformation of the entire organization. And these like multi-billion dollar organizations as well. So my perspective is a little deeper as well as broader.
It is going about the coding process, developing an app for check something. So that was an app that we did not. So sometimes during print of having what storyboarding that we go through. And then we reprint the process and we read some of the stuff
Got it.
we put forward in that. It's a very good position for an app that we need.
Very nice, very nice. That's good. That's good. At least, so I mean, it's, and we will talk more about it. But yeah, I think this is something which is now kind of a normal way of doing innovation in most of the companies over here. So that was the first part, understanding customer needs, right? So design thinking is a good methodology. But let me talk about also understanding and how can you influence internal stakeholders, right? So I assume you all are working right now, or is it like a full-time MBA program? Sorry? Full-time. And before that, were you like managers or individual contributors? Managers? Managers? Okay. All right, cool. So essentially in your organization, hopefully you're managing a team or multiple teams kind of like somewhere over there. And that's what you aspire to be, like becoming leaders. And then you have a boss, and then that boss reports into executive chain, right? You need to make sure that you're aligned with the strategy from the executive level. You are trying to influence upwards, right? And you are trying to give them update on the progress of the initiative that you're in charge of. And for your teams, you want to like set up a nice vision and purpose for them, guide them, coach them, bring clarity to them, and do that. But this is not will make you successful alone, because across the organization, there are other teams that you interact with. These are your stakeholders as well, right? And these folks have institutional knowledge, they have functional knowledge. You need to like work with them to build joint objectives, co-design with them, make them design partners for new ideas. Essentially, what you're talking about, you need to have empathy, you need to listen actively, you need to really get their feedback, you need to earn their trust, right? To be able to move any brilliant idea forward, right? This essentially means emotional intelligence. So it's not about technology, not about your idea, not about the business outcomes. It's about really influencing them by really bringing them on board, right? So that is very important part. If you miss this part, it's going to be very difficult for you to have impact inside your organization, and let alone to your customers, right? So this is kind of a framework in which kind of I created as I led a lot of these engagements. So we start from a future vision of a customer experience. We build that storyboard that this is how the customer's future experience is going to be. Then when you step back and you look at what are the capabilities that are required inside the organization to enable different parts of that journey. And then you look at what kind of initiatives you need to do from people, process, and technology perspective, and then build a roadmap for that. Now, when you are doing that, obviously you need to work with the cross-functional organization and then do that. The other part, which my experience is that there are certain capabilities you need to have inside the organization. Number one, no transformation can happen without executive level push. If you are trying to do in the middle management level, it's not going to succeed, period, right? So there are a couple of capabilities you need to like bring. One is customers insight, right? Have a mechanism through which you are constantly understanding customers' needs and evolving needs. Second part is kind of start collecting data and have your decisions made on data that you collect. The other part is kind of bring more agility into your organization. In software development, it's like DevOps transformation and agile software development happens at others. And then experimentation part is very important. And if you all bring it all together, this is not a technical or digital transformation. It is more of a cultural transformation. So keep in mind, when you talk about digital transformation in any organization, you need, if your leadership is not aware of that or does not recognize, it's more of a cultural transformation rather than a digital transformation. Because if you are able to do this, I think digitally enabling new experiences and new business model is not going to be a major issue, right? So that was kind of a quick summary, and I have some example of digital transformation towards the end of the deck, but I'll kind of pause over here to see if there is any question over here until now about enterprise transformation. All good, crystal clear. Okay. All right. Now, I think probably this is more relevant, more important individually. How can you stay relevant? So I have like these framework, which is based on 3 pillars. One is you need to have growth mindset, and I'll talk about that a little bit. You need to have creative confidence and a storytelling part. Let me just touch base on each one of them. So on growth mindset, have you heard of, read about the book from Carol Dweck about growth mindset? No? If not, I would encourage you to read that book as well. It's about really intellectual humility. And who has read the book from Satya, the Hit Refresh? No. So what he did in transforming Microsoft is Microsoft was a very know-it-all culture. Everybody knew that they were the expert. He transformed them into a learn-it-all culture. That regardless of who you are inside the organization, you need to have this growth mindset that there are certain things you can improve upon, you can learn upon. And the belief that any aspect of yourself you can improve upon. There is a fixed mindset generally in our culture, unfortunately, is more prevalent. How many times you have heard your professors, your teachers, your fathers, your uncles say, I don't know? How many times have you think about it? And think about your grandparents. Have they ever said, I don't know? That instills in our psyche. So growth mindset is that be open. I don't know. And that's the bit. One of the first things that when I came to States and I went to my master's program, and probably a long time back, you might have, I was like surprised that the professors over here were saying, I don't know, we'll find out. And I was like, shit, my professors in NAD never really said that. And we knew that they didn't know. Right? So anyways, the important point is, and if you go to my website afterwards, I have a link to a TED Talk by another Stanford psychologist. And she has proven that actually this just changing this mindset has a positive impact on your physiology even. Amazing. Your mindset has impact on your physiology, let alone your demeanor, your ability to grow, your ability to really influence others. So that's something very important. I would encourage you to read about it, learn about it, watch some videos about it. The second part is creative confidence. And I'll talk about some aspects of creativity that you will love, right? So, but key point is we are all born creative. As Einstein said, imaginations have no limits. And then the important point is we should be able to share our ideas without the fear of rejection or ridicule. Another aspect of our culture is that from childhood, we kind of start judging ourselves, right? So I think that, let me talk about something about that. Do you agree that for innovation, creative confidence is needed, right? How do you define innovation? Any thoughts? How do you define innovation? What comes to your mind? Improving something, okay.
Something new.
Something new.
Bringing a new idea. Trying to solve a problem.
Trying to solve a problem, bringing new idea. Unprecedented. Okay, all good. I'll give you a very simple equation that hopefully you're going to use it. Innovation equals creativity times execution. What is execution? And this is, we all are kind of great at. It's essentially solving problems, right? Since our primary school till our college, we are given specific problems to solve. And we are taught some techniques to solve them. So we are pretty good at that. That's what execution means. But the important part is creativity. What is creativity? Creativity is about finding the problems. That's where breakthrough innovations comes from. I know some of my friends here, they have PhDs from Berkeley, Stanford, MIT report to them. And they said, I have these awesome minds. If I give any problem to them, they'll find the best way to solve them. But the problem is they're unable to come up with the problem to solve. So I think that's something which is important. So let's talk about creative. Raise your hand if you think you are creative. Okay, let's say 60% of you are creative. Now, keep your hands raised if you think you are more creative than a 5-year-old. Ah, that's a little tricky. All right, that's good. We have a couple. That's nice. Very nice. All right. I'm not going to test you, guaranteed, right? But I'm glad that there are a couple over here who think that they are more creative than 5-year-old. What happened? Why do you think that you're not more creative than 5-year-old? Let me give you some information. This is American psychologist George Lamb. He was given in 1960s a task from NASA to come up with a creativity assessment test so that they can select their top creative engineers for some special projects. And he did just that. You might have seen some IQ tests online where they're like, there's some pictures, and then you have to predict the fifth one or something like that. I think some of that. It does not require any reading comprehension or anything like that. So what he did was he did that. He said, okay, let me give the same test to 5-year-olds. Can you guess what percentage of 5-year-old came under creative genius category? Any guesses? Any guesses? What percentage? Give me a number. 90%, 95%, right? 98%. Now, he did not stop there. He gave the same test to the same kids 5 years later. Can you guess how many of them remained in the creative genius category? Any guesses? 60, 70%, 50%, 10%. Yes, a great optimist over here. Well, actually 30%. Same kids. Now, he did the same thing 5 years later to the same kids. Any guesses? Well, this time, the guesses are like very accurate, 12%. And then what he did was he gave the same test to a sample population of American adults. Can anybody guess how many of them came under creative genius category? 2%. You're absolutely right. So our society, our education, our kind of environment, what did it do? It sucked the creativity out of us, right? So we educate ourselves out of creativity. Remember that. So if you can take one thing from here is you're all born creative geniuses. You just need to bring it back up. So let me give you maybe a little bit of tips that would help to really, how can I help you rediscover your creative confidence? Would that be useful? Right. I'll give you a few tips. Right. Hopefully they'll be useful. You can apply them in your regular life, in your regular office meetings, in your projects and stuff like that. The first one is the concept of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Have you read about that? Have you heard about that? So, right, good. So first thing is, when you are solving a problem, step back and then just ask your team to reframe that problem in as many ways as possible. And you'll be able to see how many different ways. This is called creating choices. It's divergent thinking. The other point is, whenever you're trying to solve a problem, when you are generating these ideas, do not use the same session for solving, kind of converging them and applying feasibility and viability lens. Okay, this 15 minutes, we're just going to generate, if you are finding the problem, how articulate the problems. Or if you're solving it, then let's list out all the solutions. All right. So you'll generate tons of solution ideas, tons of ways to look at the same problem, right? And then have maybe next day, have another session in which you do convergent thinking. Now we have generated some problems. Let's narrow down. Is this the right problems? And so then you kind of converge. Similarly for the solution part as well. You say, okay, we have generated tons of ideas. Let's kind of look at feasibility. There'll be some ideas which will be wacky. Some ideas will be pragmatic. The right solution might be somewhere in the middle. And then you kind of converge towards it. That's one thing, right? Both problem finding and solution finding. You kind of divide that session into divergent thinking and converge. That's going to drastically increase your number of creative ideas that you can come up with. And you can apply it in any setting. Second one is you either win or you learn. You never fail. Keep that in mind. What that means is that don't be afraid of prototyping and failing fast. What does happen is a lot of times is the first idea that comes to our mind, we stick to that. And most of the time, the first idea is not the best idea. Maybe when you generate those a lot of ideas, you combine several ideas together, that kind of and then you prototype yourself, and then you try this out, and then it fails, and you shrink the cycle of experimentation. That's where the path towards winning is. You either win or you learn, right? So that's another thing you can do. And prototyping, by the way, it does not require too much investment. You can do prototyping just by storytelling as well. You can tell, and you can learn about how to do storyboarding, right? Just lay it out there, and as you kind of go through it, read through it, you might have read some comic strips in the past, right? So it's the same concept. You apply that, but in the business setting or in your setting. Challenge the status quo or assumptions. Think about the assumptions. The status quo was, do not sit in a stranger's car. Do not let a stranger come to your house and stay there overnight. And both of these status quo or assumptions were overthrown by companies, and they made $40-50 billion companies, right? So whenever you are kind of thinking about any aspect, if you are like trying to build a startup or bring new ideas in your organization, kind of see what are the assumptions that we are operating under. What are the status quo? And let's challenge them, right? Be dumb. Ask questions, naive questions. I've done it with even executives, C-level executives of multi-billion-dollar organizations. Just ask basic questions in a curious, non-judgmental manner. Why do we do this? Have you thought about that? And then you'll be able to see that also, even though they will be projecting that confidence that they have a lot of those wisdom and knowledge, you'll be able to uncover so many insights. And you can do it with any of your, ask open-ended questions, not closed-ended questions. So that let them explain and don't judge, right? But what happens is that in our professional settings, we are reluctant in asking questions because we might think that others will think that you're stupid. You ask, you don't even know this part? But actually, those are the questions which actually unleash some insights which are useful for the business. Other part is perfection is the enemy of progress. Don't wait for your prototype to be perfect. Try it out immediately. Don't wait to make the product to be perfect before launching it. You can do launch in a very small segment, learn from it, evolve it, anything, right? So I think that's another part. Look for progress, not perfection.
It's very difficult in
Yeah. So yeah, you're right in a certain extent. But I think if you think about any product which succeeded, if you look at their early journey, that early journey actually it went through that kind of experimentation phase. And then once you have reached a certain level of maturity, then you want to make sure that and even in enterprises, when we are launching new products, we work with some friendly customers, and then we kind of show them iterative progress. We call it alpha and beta phases. And then a lot of those friendly customers want to participate in that because they want their requirements to be incorporated in what you're building. So that's what I'm talking about over here. And also the other point is when you are conveying your idea internally and with your presentations, with your prototypes, don't make sure that it's always perfect, like everything is like there. You kind of lay it out there. The important point is when you lay it out to the stakeholders and executives in a not fully baked out, but you position it in a way, this is an idea which I'm thinking, and I would love to get your feedback on it. and see whether it would help business. I think that actually builds that trust and really help you move forward. So yeah, your point is obviously when iPhone comes out, it's kind of perfect, right? So in some of those aspects in manufacturing and others, you need to have the Six Sigma and those kind of things. So I'm not talking about that. I'm more kind of talking about innovation focused ideas. But yeah, well put. This is another interesting part. A lot of times what we do is, and this is an activity we can, I think we'll see if we have time together, we can do it or not. But a lot of times you would hear some variation of no but. When an idea is put forward, there's always like, but what can we do about this? But this, oh, but this part, right? What you want to, whenever you are thinking, saying to challenge somebody, change that to yes and. So, oh, yes. And have you thought about this one? Can we add this to it? This is coming from an improv domain, but we apply that we have kind of a rule in our teams as well that we don't use no but. We just say yes and actually that encourages everyone and does not shut down anyone, right? Kind of thing. So that's something which will help you generate more creative ideas. So we talked about growth mindset. We talked about creative confidence. And then the final thing is that I want to touch base upon before I share some examples of digital transformations is storytelling, right? So whenever I'm telling to you for the last 45 minutes, I'm trying to sell an idea or some ideas to you. I'm trying to influence you. You do the same thing. You sell your ideas, you sell your product, you try to influence your team members, your stakeholders, your leaders, right? So always remember that. So some things about before I talk about storytelling, why this is important. What is the fundamental assumption about humans? You must have taken some courses in economics, right? What is the basic assumption about humans?
That not all humans have equal access to all resources.
Okay. Yeah. Can you speak up a little bit? Right. Homo economicus. So that humans are rational. We are looking to maximize utility and we are driven by self-interest, right? This is the basis for the last 250 years of economics, right? Which has worked well as well. But then, on the other hand, we are not just Homo economicus. We are emotional, we are biased, and we are social and empathic, right? And that's where I think what you're alluding to, behavioral economics over the last 40 years have really emerged. So important point is, remember this, even when you're selling to your customers, right? And there was a study which was conducted that, what do you think? It was like they evaluated brand, they evaluated product quality, they evaluated some other financial metrics, price, and then they evaluated purchasing experience. And 65% of decisions were made on purchasing experience, not the other factors combined. So I think the important point is consider that piece. So when you are interacting with any human, facts and data is okay. And what is the neurological and psychological aspects of it? You might have heard about this metaphor of the rider and the elephant. So elephant is your emotional brain. It's your limbic system, really core, the reptilian brain. It's out of control unless the rational brain, which is the frontal cortex, is sitting on it and trying to control it. Daniel Kahneman says system one and system two. System one is the emotional, system two is more rational, right? And what you need to do is you need to like think about it that when we take our decisions, they are not really based on data and facts. We make decisions and we rationalize with data and fact, mostly. And the other point is, if you want to, you need to influence anybody, you need to touch at an emotional level. And that touching the emotional level is not through data and facts, it's through stories. Because we have evolved like that over the course of hundreds of thousands of years. At that point, there was no writing, only stories, right? So important point is the storytelling is so important. And I think it's a skill that you can learn, just like you can learn growth mindset, just like you can learn the creative confidence, have creative confidence. Similarly, you can learn storytelling. And you can't just learn it by reading books and watching TED Talks. You need to kind of internalize it and use it. Just like you can't learn swimming by reading books, right? So I think you need to do that. So with that, I have some transformation example that I will quickly show, and then we'll see whether there are some questions. So this was a large athletic manufacturer north of here that I led their digital transformation on. And they were moving, they had their business model was more about wholesale centric, and they want to move to direct to consumer. And we kind of, I led that. This is pictures from some of their in their headquarters. You see the board over here with these post-its, the orange post-its. Essentially, that's the future vision of the experience that we had over there, which we then translated into it. And then we looked at the initiative they need to take. And then during this time, when we kind of laid out the future experience, they said, oh, yeah, this is great. When we went to the next exercise in terms of initiative, and then what we need to change, one of the executives just stepped back and said, holy shit, I never realized that it's going to have such a huge impact across the entire organization. So that is very important to realize that. So, and then obviously we quickly prototype, we build that kind of a prototype for them and kind of led that transformation. That really ended up identifying all the technologies they need to have in-house. What are the process changes? What are the organizational dynamics changes and structural changes they need to do? And then that was like a several years kind of path that they started working on. So that was one thing. So I applied design thinking into really transforming the entire organization. The other part is we did the engagement with Daimler, their sports car AMG high performance car division. We used design thinking to transform their design process for their cars. The project was so well done that it was presented to their board, and their board asked, who did you work with? They said, well, I was at that time at SAP's app house. And they said, well, we work with SAP's new team, which drives innovation. And they said, oh, this is great. So what they did was they said, okay, they wanted to bring this approach in-house. We helped set up their innovation processes. We even set up, if I don't know whether it's still there or not, but several years back in their headquarters, they had with our help constructed with like an innovation house, design thinking innovation house, which was containers, like 3 or 4 containers with glass walls. They said, I want my employees and my customers and partners, when they come to the headquarters, I want to see this is how Daimler innovates. So we kind of help in bringing the culture of innovation to Daimler as well, establish their design thinking processes too. This is another leader in consumer products, more kind of nutrition space. And they wanted to transform. Their leaders they had an idea, hey, we need to like build another Fitbit type device. So okay, hold on. Why are you going to solution first? Let's look at, and we explain to them, this is the approach. We kind of talk to the users. We bring those perspectives in, really understand what their needs are, and then try to see, maybe at the end, we'll come to the same conclusion, but don't just jump to a solution. So what we did was we kind of took a very holistic approach. We all did all this contextual interviews, like user research, really ethnographic research. We brought those in. We looked at the technology. We looked at the business landscape. And then we kind of did the cross collaborative exercise. We looked at, hey, these are like, it's better served that you become a platform, wellness platform, which has three kind of pillars. One is genetics, one is fitness, and one is nutrition. Nutrition, they already knew, but they need to partner with on the other part with other partners as well. And we need to like transform your business model to direct to consumer and other aspects over there, more database. We looked at all the players which are playing a role in these 3 spaces, and then potential partnerships, and we kind of build a quick prototype around how the experience might look like, which will tie into these aspects, and to really prove it out. And this perspective fed by the full data platform in the backend. So you can see this is a summary of it across the three pillars, starting from the user experience, and what kind of service impact is this, what is the data that you're going to be looking in, what kind of experience will be coming out, partnerships, technology, and other considerations over there. So you can see that it's a much more holistic approach in transformation rather than just, hey, let's try to build another device, right? And this could be, they say, okay, we're not going to be building another device. We'll be partnering with the device manufacturers, but we'll be the data platform because that's where the more insight is. So again, reformulating the problem space is so important based on the needs of the end user, right? With that, this is the end of my talk. And feel free to check out my website as well. I do from time to time write out some blogs, so feel free to check it out. And I would love to kind of see if there are any questions.